Make no mistake, folks, the Ethereum merge is the biggest event in crypto in 2022. All you need to do is look at Google's front page. So if you type in Ethereum merge, well, right away what you get right here is a countdown clock saying how many days, how many hours, how many minutes. So when you've got a dedicated countdown clock on Google, well, you know it's a big deal. So for those wondering whether now is the time to be buying Ethereum, well, you first need to consider, am I a long-term investor or am I a trader? So for those out there looking to buy the exact bottom, well, my personal belief is with whether it's Ethereum, Bitcoin, or the broader crypto market, the bottom I don't believe is in quite yet. But with that said, of course, you have to do your own calculations and determine, well, do I have to buy the exact bottom or am I comfortable just buying at a discounted rate? So with the release of the August inflation numbers, to the surprise of many, inflation has actually increased. So that should really be an alarm bell for investors because ultimately you've got the Fed who are very aggressively trying to reduce the rates. But of course, if we look at the history of crypto and its price performance, well, it's those times where the interest rates have been dropping. That's when we've really had the exponential rises. Whereas during those times, and we haven't really had any major times where interest rates have been on the rise, well, there's a little bit of concern there as to, well, in this market, can crypto actually perform while interest rates are going up? And more specifically around the actual Ethereum merge itself, well, there's quite a bit of downside risk. So more specifically, you have to consider in the broader crypto market, and the same is applied across other projects in the past, we've really seen a lot of buy the rumor, sell the news events. And in addition to that as well, I also have concerns around expectation. So with the Ethereum merge, I get the sense that there will be at least enough people within the community that are under the assumption, and this is an incorrect assumption, that the merge will lead to a decrease in gas prices and additionally an increase in network speed. Well, unfortunately, to break the reality to you at home, that won't be the case. We won't be at this time seeing that speed increase and that reduction in gas fees. So that's something to be very much aware of. For you at home in doing your calculations, and also to be aware of in terms of the actual competitiveness of Ethereum and quite possibly as well the speculation in the short term around it. The actual benefits of the merge, of course, is that it's a move from proof of work to proof of stake. So why is that beneficial? Well, you've got, of course, the environmental impact where being a proof of work, well, it's going to take significantly more power. So you've got that aspect, whereas proof of stake, you don't have that level of power demand or power drain to anywhere near that same level. But additionally, you also need to consider that when you've got a proof of work cryptocurrency, well, what are the miners doing? So they're mining and basically creating Ethereum out of thin air. So basically by doing that, well, they've got costs associated with that. So what are they going to be essentially doing? Well, they're going to be selling down the price. Whereas on the other hand, in making the shift to proof of stake, well, the actual practical benefit of that is, well, you don't have the miners that are selling down the price. What's happening instead is that people are actually incentivized to stake. And with that dynamic being the case, well, that essentially should, at least in theory, mean that there's a reduction in sell pressure. So that would be certainly something I would be very much cognizant of if I was to be looking at Ethereum. So there might be some of you at home thinking, well, whoop-de-doo, the environment, so what? How is that a pumpermental? You've got Bitcoin number one, Ethereum number two. They've both been proof of work. That's worked pretty well. Well, fair enough, but this is the real selling point right here with Ethereum. So why I'm personally bullish, not so much over the short term, but certainly the medium to long term, is the change in the rate of issuance. So what we have here, this is the total annual rate of issuance before the merge. So this is while we're on proof of work. So basically new currency being issued at approximately 4.62% annually. So that's actually quite a high rate of inflation. But of course, with demand for usage of Ethereum exceeding that, well, that's why over time we've had increases in price with Ethereum. But this is the real selling point right here. So basically we're going to have a new total rate of issuance of around 0.49%. So that's a dramatic drop to say the least. And it will be basically meaning, it's a bit like with all the Bitcoin halving events. Well, this is a lot more than just a halving event right here. This is a dramatic drop in terms of actual currency creation and rate of currency creation. So really, it's a very bullish thing for Ethereum. So in terms of short-term pricing, well, it's probably quite baked in. But in terms of price performance over the medium to longer term, well, this is fantastic, because as long as ultimately the increases of demand exceed the rate of inflation or new currency creation, well, you're winning. And in addition to that rate of issuance, well, you also have to consider there are Ethereum burns. So ultimately, we're more likely to see a currency that, rather than actually continuing to inflate, we might actually see the circulating supply, or overall supply for that matter, remaining pretty similar, possibly even dropping slightly over time. So if we end up with a situation where there's deflation, well, that's going to be absolutely fantastic, because if we have continually increasing demand and the actual supply, maybe it holds steady, maybe it shrinks slightly, well, that's incredible. That's really going to lead to positive price performance on quite a high level. So there is significant reason to remain bullish about Ethereum. So what am I doing? And of course, what I'm doing isn't appropriate for everyone's situation. So think about what you should be doing and what's best for you in your personal circumstances. But for me, I'll be setting some buy orders, but some incredibly low ball offers, in the hope that some of those orders trigger. Because ultimately, in the short term, I believe the whole crypto market will continue dropping. I don't believe we've reached bottom, and therefore I'm basically betting on that outcome coming into play. So fingers crossed, of course, some of those buy orders get achieved. But yeah, look, if not, then the consequence of that will be, well, I'll have to, at some point or another, buy either as it's stagnant or heading on up. So there's some of the things that I'll need to calculate into my own sort of, I guess, circumstances there. So I guess you could say that I'm taking very much a patient approach with the crypto market, where basically I see us as being in a bear market where I don't really see any potential for growth anytime soon. So therefore, I'm not particularly worried. And look, if things just hold stagnant, well, that's fine. But if it drops, well, then I'll be ready to basically buy up and buy while there's blood in the streets. So that's sort of how I'm looking at things broadly. But basically looking at the broader macro environment where you've got interest rates rising. I can't imagine that'll be good for crypto, given when you get interest rates dropping, that's when you get really the steepest rises. So if interest rates are going up, which is really a bit of an unknown territory and it's not looking good so far, well, we could potentially have further drops. And of course, with the inflation figures being quite out of control, well, it looks like those interest rates are going to need to keep rising for quite some time. So yeah, that's basically a situation we'll need to get used to. But with that said, in having buy orders in, I'll need at some stage to maybe taper those buy orders and put them at levels where they will actually execute over time. So perhaps over coming months, maybe my stance loosens a bit and those buy orders won't be so far down below their current pricing. So as that way I can actually pick up some of the cryptocurrencies that are discounted. And of course, beyond Ethereum, I'm more than just an Ethereum investor. That's actually one of my much smaller positions overall in my, at this stage, modest portfolio. Another approach that I've given quite a good amount of consideration to is dollar cost averaging. And perhaps if we get another leg down in this bear market, well, I might actually look more towards a dollar cost averaging strategy rather than really buying the dip and really waiting for those buy orders to trigger. Maybe I still have a few low ball offers there just in case, but I will probably in time look to dollar cost average, which over time, when you look at the markets, whether it's in crypto, whether it's in stocks, typically that's quite a good strategy over the long term if you want to achieve success in a particular asset class. So certainly give strong consideration to dollar cost averaging and have a think as to whether in your personal circumstance that's a strategy that would work for you. And before we wrap up, I wanted to take you through this handy tool. So this is a good tool for crypto investors out there looking to determine, well, when's a good time to get into a project. So the website here is cryptorank.io/ATH. So ATH, of course, being from all-time high. So what we've got here is percentage from all-time high. And what I've done, I've selected 10 or so projects. So they're not meme coins, they're not NFTs, they're not stable coins. So these are projects that I personally think will be around, certainly in upcoming cycles, and will have some level of sticking power. And based on today's prices, I would certainly think come the time the next bull market comes around, that they will be exceeding these prices as we currently see them today on this screen. So not financial advice. I don't have a crystal ball. It's just what I personally think is likely. So if that counts for anything. So how to interpret this and why I believe this is a useful resource is we can get a bit of a feel for, well, how far have they gone down and how much of a discount am I buying at? So if you're buying internet computer, well, you're buying it certainly compared to all-time high at about a 98, 99% discount. So if you're really bullish on the project, well, maybe it's a time to get in. So, and also you need to consider as well, you can look at past cycles and you can bring up, well, what's been their price performance over past 4-year cycles? What have they done? So how far do they rise up? How far do they typically dip? And what, as a general feel you'll get used to in looking at price charts, is that Bitcoin and Ethereum tend to be, I guess in crypto terms, more your blue chip projects. So they won't necessarily have the same upside for growth from bottom as a lot of the other projects will, but certainly compared to other projects with a lot less liquidity, such as Hex, for example, you'll find that during bear markets, you won't get the same levels of dips. So if we had a 98 or 99% dip on Ethereum and Bitcoin, well, that would just be an incredible thing and an absolute shock to everyone in the crypto market, to say the least. So that'd be like a end of property cycle sort of event where maybe you might get somewhere nearing those sort of dips then, but certainly over a regular 4-year cycle, I wouldn't be expecting anything along those lines. But of course, with a project like Hex having incredibly little liquidity because it's a very tightly held coin, well, during a bear market, there is certainly greater scope for price drops. But alternatively, come the time you get a bull market, well, it might have the highest possible gains because it is so tightly held. And if there is that growing demand, well, the price can move incredibly quickly, as we saw in last cycle, where it far exceeded the price performance of the likes of your Ethereums and Bitcoins. So you really need to look at, well, what does a Hex do during a regular market cycle? Well, you might find that it experiences regular drops of 60, 70, 80%, and that's okay. Whereas with a Bitcoin or Ethereum, you don't necessarily see that sort of price action. So you really need to look at, well, what's normal during an end of cycle crash, and also what's typical during the part of a regular cycle. Of course, needless to say, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video should constitute as financial advice because I'm not aware of your personal situation, and not everything I'm saying in this video is relevant to every viewer. So be mindful of that. But the one suggestion I do have for all of you at home is to get educated and use this bear market as an opportunity to get financially educated, because based on certainly history, bear markets are the best time to get into the market, whatever the market you want to get into, assuming it's a good market to be in, because that's when you have the greatest opportunity for price appreciation. So in crypto, typically it's those that are either founders, those who control or own exchanges, or those who are the ones who get into projects early and hold over the long term. In crypto, traditionally, they're the winners. So imagine buying Bitcoin at $1 or Ethereum at $1. Well, if you're selling now, well, you're making huge gains. So they're the sort of opportunities you want to get into. And look, there'll be still some established opportunities where maybe you got into Bitcoin or Ethereum last market cycle and you've still made huge gains. Well, those opportunities I personally believe still exist, but you at home, you do your own research and identify, is this a good opportunity for me? I don't know whether it is or not, but you need to find that out for yourself. Thanks for watching, folks, and let me know in the comments section below, what are your projections with the Ethereum merge? Do you think we're going to see a rise, or will we be seeing a drop? I'd be interested to know what you think will be the short-term moves. But if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates, and I'll see you in the next video.